What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to the JTFB channel. I'm Josh Taylor, and welcome to the off season, y'all. You never know when I'm going to pop up with breaking news. So, woke up this morning to see that John Allen has been given permission by the team to seek a trade, which doesn't seem too crazy. Like, it's not too surprising. We kind of saw if anyone between John Allen and Deron Payne were to be moved, it would have definitely been John Allen just because of the contract, the money you'd be saving and everything. I'll talk about that briefly, but there's just a couple different nuggets to really think about with this. And I just want to break it all down for y'all. So as always, hit that subscribe and like button, y'all. It's going to be a crazy off season, so buckle up. This is just the beginning. The off season's officially starting now. People at the combine, people talk at the combine, GMs talk, trades get done. Of course, Washington is centered around a lot of stuff with free agents and trades and the draft. Because of the draft capital, the money we have in the salary cap, there's just a lot going on. So hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on anything. So it's the thing is, does it make sense to move on from John Allen? Yes. Now the thing is, you have to think about the negatives as well. This is probably the worst time you could trade John Allen because of his age, because of the torn pectoral muscle that he had last year. Even though he did come back and he looked pretty good in the postseason, especially against the Lions, it's one of his best games in a long time. Still, it's like buying a used car that has a severe accident on it. Like, you're like, oh, let me check the car history facts or car report or whatever, and you see that, you're like, ugh, I don't know about that. I don't know what that damage looks like. I don't know if there's any kind of frame damage. I don't know what all that looks like. Was everything fixed properly? It's the same thing for a player that tore his pec, which is a really bad injury, by the way. But then also, this is the best defensive tackle class I can remember ever looking, at the draft in a long time. Like, in my years of looking at the draft and really breaking it down and scouting, this is the best one I've seen ever. The amount of D tackles at the combine this year pretty much doubled, if not more, than last year. I want to say last year was 20 something D tackles. Now it's 40, which is crazy. But it just shows you how good this D tackle class is. It's not, a mystery by anybody. It's not a surprise. You can get starters in the third, fourth round, whatever. And, now that this news has officially come out, I've been waiting on this news to come out before I do a lot of D tackle videos, talk about free agents, talk about, players in the draft I like. But now it's time to start having those conversations. So moving forward, you'll see more of those from me in videos coming up in the next week or so, actually, probably. But I just want to pull up Ian Rappaport's tweet about Jonathan Allen and talk about a couple things, and then really break down the numbers of what this all looks like. So in Rapp, the thing you have to know about Rapp, I love him to death. A lot of his tweets and stuff about players, everything comes from the agents. So when the news breaks and stuff like that, it comes from the agents. And a lot of his stuff is copy and paste from the agents. So it says the Commanders have had trade conversations centered around Pro Bowl D lineman Jonathan Allen, sources say. So they've already started having these conversations. Washington plans to do right by the player, and Allen's camp is involved in helping him land at the right spot, either via trade or free agency. Just remember that. He has 1 year left at $15 million. So I'm pretty sure whoever picks him up would have to pay him $15 million, which isn't bad. And he has no guarantees left on his contract either. So, but the interesting thing, I want to talk a couple things about that. It says help him land at the right spot. Obviously, John Allen, they respect the hell out of him, as they should. Shout out to my boy John Allen. Gonna miss him. Either via trade or free agency. So what that tells me is, if they can't land a trade partner for, the compensation that they're looking for, it sounds like they would release him. That's what this tells me. Is it's done. There is no, if we can't get, trade pieces for them, we'll just restructure them and bring them back. That's not what this sounds like at all. This says via trade or free agency. So they would release him, according to Ian Rapoport, according to John Allen's agent, who would know the most about the situation. So I think that's what stuck out the most about me, or the most, to me, is I would find it really hard to just straight up release him just to save money. In a free agency group that's not that good. They would have to have like a pretty good plan in place to feel good about that. Whether it's someone they really, really like in the draft or that's someone in free agency where they're like, we're going to target that guy heavily, heavily. And like I said, I'll break down the targets and stuff like that for y'all. Don't worry. But to just straight up release him to save money when you already have the third most salary cap in the NFL. Like I said, this isn't the craziest free agency group. You're not going to just sign a ton of people. It's not like you're, dry for money. I find that so hard to like accept. But in Adam Peters, we trust. So what that tells me is, they're obviously going to look for a trade. And it's John Allen. Like, I think John Allen, I think Washington fans discredit him more than anybody, honestly. But I think around the league, there is a lot of respect for John Allen. I think John Allen is still a really good player. I really do. So what I think is they will find a trade partner for him. Now, I saw Jordan Reed said, to JP today, a third or fourth. I think that's crazy. I think the absolute maximum would be a fourth round pick. And I would do that in a heartbeat because Washington doesn't have a fourth round pick. But I think more realistic would be like a fifth, or I think you could see like a really good like pick swap, like a pretty noticeable pick swap. But if I had to guess right now, this morning, 10 a.m. Central Time, of what happens with John Allen, I think he gets traded for a fifth round pick. I think that's what happens. I think a fifth is reasonable for both sides. I think at that point, it's worth the trade because you are saving the money. You are getting a fifth round pick. Hell, even if it's for like next year in a draft that's supposed to be, better. If it's like, hey, we'll take a fourth next year, then I would do that over a fifth this year because of the talent that's in the draft. Very well known. So let's look at John Allen's just numbers real quick and really see what they would be saving. So the main number is he is 30 years old. I want to say he's old, but I'm 31. So the fact that I'm older than John Allen's crazy. But he is just wise. He's not old. But his cap hit for 2025 for Washington's $22.3 million. I think that's the biggest issue. And the out has always been this year for John Allen. He'd be a free agent next year when he turns 31. But if we take a look at the numbers, and this would very likely be a pre-6-1 trade. They're not waiting because it makes literally no difference. Anyways, you take $6 million dead cap hit, which is fine because in total you're saving $16.3 million of salary cap by trading John Allen. Now, for a lot of players, it's like, oh, usually if you release them, like you aren't saving as much, blah, 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 blah. But for John Allen, it doesn't matter. You're saving that money regardless of what you do when you do it. Pre-6-1 release, pre-6-1 trade, it doesn't matter. You're saving $16.3 million in cap when you move John Allen. So that's just something to think about. Does it make sense from a business standpoint? Yes. Is it time to get younger at the position? I think we can all agree on that. I think him and Deron Payne have both underplayed. Like, I'm not saying John Allen's been really bad. Like, I'm not one of those people like the fans that say, oh my gosh, like John Allen is, awful. Like, just get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not me. But I do think it's time to just change things up. You saw what the defense looked like last year. And for me, it's just like, when is the defense going to look like it should, like on paper? When is that going to translate to the field? And for Deron Payne and John Allen, unfortunately, it just hasn't been there for a little while now. Like for Deron Payne, no excuse. Like it's up to him now. Like he's got to do something. John Allen can, has the injury, comes back anyways, plays really well. He was here for all the bad, like bless his heart, love him to death. But it's just at some point you got to get younger, and you've got to start building the trenches up. So I'm not mad at it. Am I sad about it? Yeah, because that's my boy. Been watching him since high school. Watched him at Alabama, and then of course my team drafted him, like one of the best drafts ever for me. So Of course, I've got emotional ties to it, but this is a business, you know. But I do want to show y'all real quick just the picks that Washington has, and just kind of walk y'all through that as well. Like I said, a best case scenario for me is if you get a fourth, like, yeah, you don't even like wait for other trade offers. You're like, hey, we're doing a fourth. Like, yes, we're saying yes on the spot. But I think realistic would be a fifth round pick. But the gap from 79 to 148, I do like the top 100 of this draft. So you can get a top 100 pick. Cool. If you start getting into like the 150 range, something like that, I'm just like, what are you even going to get? Like, the chances in this draft of you hitting somebody is lower than it usually is. I'm not going to say really low because you can find players anywhere. I'm not worried about that. But it's just like the hit streak, or like the hit rate in this draft. There's going to be a lot of misses by some teams, but there will be some teams that also find a couple of gems in these later rounds that you weren't really expecting. But this is a draft where you could get a D tackle at pick 79, or even if you get a fourth round pick and you get a D tackle right there, like any of these day 2 D tackles, and you're gonna be like, wow, this guy actually turned out to be the future. You know him, and I'm saying this. I haven't even mentioned him yet, but Johnny Newton. I'm expecting a giant leap from Johnny Newton next season. You know, a guy that didn't even get an offseason in his rookie year. He had to come back from that foot surgery, really just hit the ground running, and then, make his way into the rotation and started making plays. And I saw a lot of good things out of Newton. He's been one of my favorite D tackles that I've ever scouted. I was so high on Newton. I could not believe we actually got him. He was one of the one of the most dominating D tackles I've ever watched in college. And I'm not exaggerating at all. The tape spoke for itself. I need him to get to that. If he can get to that form this season coming up, that is already going to do so much for the defensive line. So if you can get somebody else, and I'll talk about some free agents as well, because we've already been linked to a big free agent that might be getting a hefty pay. So there's a couple I'll talk about. Like, I'll mention, maybe I'll do a top 5 free agent D tackle list, and then maybe I'll do a top 5 D tackle draft list for y'all. So stay tuned for that. So make sure you're subscribed up so you don't miss out on all those. But just having Johnny Newton take that leap, like, all eyes are going to be on Deron Payne this season. All eyes are going to be on Deron Payne. You can talk about, the pressure's on Marshawn Lattimore. We traded for him like when he was hurt. Like, he had I don't think there's as much pressure on Marshawn Lattimore as there is on Deron Payne. Like, Deron Payne, you've been here. You're healthy. I think besides like his finger injury, whatever he had, like, all eyes are going to be on him. You got to step up and be that guy on the defensive line. Like, you've been here the longest. You should be the leader and lead by example. So it is big news. John Allen's, seeking a trade with his agent, and maybe he's involved with a trade for a player. I've had people say stuff about me like that. Maybe they send him to the Browns. I'm like, I don't think he would. Like, I don't see that being like a Myles Garrett deal, because they still can't afford John Allen. Like, the Browns still don't have money. They'd have to move a lot of stuff around. Not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very unlikely. Maybe it's a trade for Debo. Maybe it's trade for Cooper Kupp. Who knows? But this opens up a lot, the door for a lot of different situations. And honestly, if it's going to be like a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick this year, I would much rather trade for Debo or Cooper Kupp, to be honest with you. If that's on the table, and if we're like, hey, San Fran, we will send you John Allen for Debo straight up. Because I think that's the same. I think they're both worth a 5th round pick, to be honest with you. Same with Cooper Kupp. If we're like, hey, Rams probably wouldn't take them because they have, Fisk, they've got Byron Young. They've got a really good young defensive line. Could they rotate them in? Sure, but at that price point, I don't see it. But anyways, I just, if it's a 4th round pick, sure, take the pick. But if it's like a 5th or a 6th, I would take Debo or Kupp. But I think the biggest one would be Debo would make the most sense, and a 5th round pick, if not from another team. I probably won't do like some breakdowns of like teams that could be interested in John Allen. I mean, there's a lot of teams. Like I said, I think teams around the league respect John Allen a lot more than Washington fans do. So I think there definitely is a home for him. Like, heck, even send him to like a place like Buffalo. I think Buffalo could use him. I think the Lions could use him. Unfortunately, like in the NFC, like maybe you don't want to send him to the NFC, but whatever. Who cares? Business is business. If you're going to get like a 4th or 5th round pick, I don't care where he goes. I don't care if he goes to Dallas, to be honest with you. Actually, I do, because I do love John Allen, but just don't send him to the NFC East. But I appreciate y'all checking out this video. Like I said, hit that subscribe and like button and stay tuned for some more breaking news. Combine starting up now, so you never know what's going to happen. Now that all the teams are together, they're gossiping, they're talking and getting all these trade deals sorted out. But I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you next time.